Hello everyone, this is Professor Hunter and I'm going to give you a quick visual primer on marketing strategy and management. So the intent of this video is really to give you an idea from like a 30,000 foot level of what marketing strategy and marketing management is about. So this is going to be a really quick immersion and a really quick introduction to like 50 graphics that I use to teach marketing management. Taught the MBA course for about 20 years at some of the best business schools in the United States, some of the top research schools, including two top 40 MBA programs. So this has been my synthesis of to students' question of what is it that you really need to know about marketing and marketing management, and its intent is to kind of indoctrinate students into marketing, whether they have a background in marketing or not. So it is a perspective, not quote the perspective. There are multiple perspectives on marketing, as many of you may already know. So this is a way to think about strategic marketing and marketing management. Okay, so this is just a real quick table of contents and an agenda for the presentation. So you can kind of see some of the major topics that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to start with talking about things like defining marketing strategy, the gist of planning, go through market opportunity analysis, some of those different stages through like the marketing mix and components and those kind of things, and then talk last about digital marketing strategy. Again, there are going to be about 50 slides, so you'll see in the upper right-hand corner on the slides that I'm trying to emphasize this designation of FAB-X, designated graphic, FAB number X. That number will either be 1 through 50, where X is the number 1 through 50, and those are the 50 slides that I'm primarily trying to emphasize on understanding marketing strategy and marketing management. Okay, so I'll start first with defining marketing strategy. So in order to kind of talk about marketing strategy, we first need some definition of what is marketing strategy. So first I'll start with the idea of like what is marketing. So understanding what is marketing kind of comes from this idea of understanding what the purpose of a business is from Drucker, and Drucker's focus on creating a customer. So marketing is the most customer centric. It is literally centered on customers in the way you do your business. So customer centric, although has been a more recent term, that's really kind of the focus of much of what is there. Marketing really gets at the idea of value. So value also has to be a big part of that. Value being basically the difference of what is received versus what is given. So you'll hear value a lot, value propositions, what's your value add, all those types of things. This is really kind of the concept of marketing, or really at the core of marketing. So marketing as a function is about creating customers, and in order to do that, they have to deliver something of value to their customers. So if we're going to kind of summarize some of the different key things of what marketers do or what marketing is about, the AMA definition really gets into these four different things: creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging value. So that's really kind of what marketing does or what marketing is about. And this is a formal definition from the AMA of what is marketing. That's FAB 1. So FAB 2 is going to build on that perspective and say, okay, well, if that's what marketing is, then what is marketing strategy? So marketing strategy is really going to kind of take the idea of marketing and combine it with the idea of strategy, right? So strategy, from my perspective, starts with the military strategy. I am a West Point graduate, so strategy I first learned at West Point. And so I do think of these classic ideas of strategy, but it really is part of the origins of the concept of strategy. So folks like Carl von Clausewitz, who talked about war and the object of war, that was kind of where strategy first started. And then it, of course, evolved and was picked up by some of the top business scholars of all times, right? So Michael Porter's view on the essence of business strategy is choosing a unique and valuable position rooted in systems of activities that are much more difficult to match. So the idea of trying to come up with a plan, that's a strategy, right? A plan in Oxford Dictionary terms is that. A plan that's going to make you unique and put you in a position in your markets that is of value to a target market or to some different customers. So a customer-centric is the way I would describe it. Marketing strategy is a plan that is designed to gain or sustain customer value in a chosen target market. Okay, so marketing strategy then looks at creating value by tailoring offerings to fit each chosen customer market. So marketing goes through the process of finding a target market. That's a group of people who have something similar, or a group of companies in the business-to-business case, or a group of government functions or groups of governments even, that have some homogeneous similarities between them, but are heterogeneous or different from other groups of those different types of markets. But you basically have said this is a target, this is a market that we want to go after. And once you made that decision as a marketer that this is a market that you want to go after, then the next steps of targeting is to tailor your offering to fit that market. So the way marketers go about tailoring their offering is thinking about different characteristics of what they can change about their offering. Anything and everything that you can change about your offering is considered the marketing mix. So that's the term in marketing. Anything and everything that I can change about marketing is part of my marketing mix. Or anything or everything I can change about my offering, is what I'm going to refer to as the marketing mix. And I'm basically going to change those things to make my offerings add more value to the target markets that I'm trying to whom I'm trying to sell the product. So, some markets, of course, I will not be able to reach. There are going to be some markets that have no value from my product, that receive no benefit from buying it. So, thinking and choosing that whole process is what's called targeting. So, that's a big part of marketing strategy, and then fitting and tailoring your marketing mix to the market is really how you create value for those customers. So then a marketing strategy is going to have two related parts. One is a defined target market, and the second is a marketing mix, how you're specifically designing to meet that mix. So that's kind of the marketing strategy introduction. What I want to talk about now is the gist of strategic marketing planning. And this is going to be, again, a 30,000 foot perspective of what's really the gist of planning, of developing marketing plans. Okay, so if you think about just customers and how they think about things, and you think about the impetus of what marketers are trying to do, which is basically to serve and satisfy unmet needs over time, that's the goal of what marketers are trying to do. We have to think about, well, how do these unmet needs evolve and how can I identify them? So when we think about needs can be physiological or they can be psychological. A physiological need would be something like thirst or hunger. A psychological need could be something like status. I need status. I want people to think more highly of me. Those sorts of things would be more on the psychological range. So these physiological or psychological needs exist. Marketers aren't creating these physiological or psychological needs, but they're recognizing that those needs exist. And when they recognize that some of those needs are unmet, they realize that this creates in the state of mind of the customer, whether that's a consumer or a business customer, some discomfort. And that discomfort exists because there's some difference between their current state and their desired state. So this is their current state, where the customer is in terms of status. They'd like to be at a higher status. That's their desired state. How can my product help them to fill that need for status on the psychological side? This is where they are in terms of thirst or hunger. If that's what I'm focused on in terms of physiological needs, how can I help them to achieve their goal of not being hungry? So how can I help feed the hungry? Marketers, literally marketing, the ideas of marketing can serve whatever purposes you would like for them to serve, however grand or however small. So that's kind of the ideas. We were trying to look for these unmet needs, and then we're going to tailor our offerings to try to resolve those unmet needs, to relieve that state of discomfort that customers have. Okay, so that's in a nutshell the major steps of marketing. Some of the outputs of that effort that are associated with relieving discomfort is that you can end up with an undesired output. And that undesired output is that once a customer has bought your product, they may feel this idea that they should have bought something else. So that's the idea of buyer's remorse. I bought your product, I could have had something else, right? So the desired output, of course, is the idea of achieving satisfaction. That's the end game of marketing. So marketers are trying to satisfy customers by delivering products that meet the needs that they sought to achieve. There's satiation and competition. So basically, over time, the expectations that people have will evolve, and they'll expect more from the different products. And that's, a lot of times that's driven by competition, who provides better products than what you're providing. So this idea that expectations will satiate over time as new and better offerings evolve. Okay, so that's a continuous process then. That idea of kind of thinking about marketing, how do we satisfy needs, becomes a very continuous process where marketers have to go back and revisit those ideas over time. Okay, so this gets to the idea of a value proposition. So value propositions are really kind of this idea of what am I going to propose to the customer that will be of value to them. That's my promise to the customer. So this is my implicit or explicit promise that my product is going to make to deliver value, again, benefits less cost, to that target market or that customer. So I like to think about value propositions along two dimensions. One being, in crafting a value proposition, I like to think about what is it that I can do in terms of my competitive advantage in the offerings that I make, and what is it that really is of interest to the customer so that I can deliver on those different things, what's really important to the target market or to the customers. So that might give me 4 different quadrants that I would consider, right? One on the lower left where I don't have much, I'm not very strong at it, but the customer really doesn't care. I'm weak, but it's in a particular area where there's no value or the customer doesn't value that, my ability to deliver that benefit. That's basically an irrelevant weakness. I can have these irrelevant strengths. There can be something that I'm really, really good at as a company, or that my product or brand is really, really good at, but customers don't really value that. So if the customers don't value that, then that's an irrelevant strength. So on the selling side, or on the objections idea, this often happens in buyers' objections often happen in selling, because one of the real advantages of selling is that you have two-way communications with your buyer. So you have a chance to address these objections. But thinking about what the objections are going to be to your offering is often based on something that's really important to the customer, or some benefit that's really important to your target market, but you're not very good at delivering that benefit. So that basically is where you're expecting some objections to your offering, or to what you're proposing as a solution. So what you're trying to do with your value proposition is to find those things where you have really strong, your brand or your product, or you as an individual, if you're marketing yourself, have really strong competitive advantages that are really important to the target market. And that becomes kind of the gist of what you want to emphasize in the brief communications that you often have with your customers. That brings me to the idea of how to structure strategic marketing. So I want you to think about strategic marketing as having like 3 major modules first, right? And the first of those modules is going to be what I'm going to refer to as a market opportunity analysis. That's basically kind of looking at the market and trying to decide, is there a market for my product? And if so, how could I characterize that market? What are some of the things that will help me to kind of figure out the market itself? So we're going to talk about 5 C's that you might consider. These are basically 5 words that begin with the letter C. There are things that you might consider on answering the question, is there a market for my product? Then we're going to develop these marketing strategies, which I mentioned in an earlier slide, that a marketing strategy really consists of those 2 components, right? The 2 components being your marketing mix, how are you going to tailor your offering, and the target market. So you're going to craft these value propositions that work to those. So that's a third model, or the third module here in this set that you might think about. What connects the market opportunity analysis to these marketing strategies is using techniques called segmenting, targeting, differentiation, and positioning. So that's going to be kind of the strategic design, how we're going to kind of design and implement our strategies to link the opportunities with the strategies that we're developing. So those are kind of the 3 major modules that you might think about when you're thinking about strategic marketing or marketing management. Okay, this slide is really kind of the slide that organizes a lot of the thoughts that, when I'm doing my overview of marketing that would come into play. So a lot of my former students call this, quote, the slide, because in many ways this slide outlines the major components of marketing as I see them, and then a lot of the rest of what I teach is to provide depth to this. So I think of this slide as a 2-dimensional graphic that provides you insights on how you link the market, which is defined by these 5 C's. So as I mentioned the market opportunity analysis earlier, the 5 C's are customers, competitors, company, collaborators, and context. Those are 5 different things that we're going to think about in defining and assessing whether or not there may be a market for my product. And many of the other slides are going to provide some depth in how to think about customers, how to think about competitors, how to think about your own company, how to think about collaborators, how to think about the context in which the marketing organization is operating. So this on the left side is what I think about as the market. And then on the right side, these components is what I think about as the marketing strategy. So that's the second module that I just talked about. But here I want you to see that I'm breaking the marketing strategy down into these two component parts, the marketing mix, which now is represented by these 4Ps: product, price, place, and promotion, and the target market being the second component of the strategy. So these are going to be things, this is going to be a heuristic that I'll talk about that's often misunderstood. It's basically a heuristic is a simplification. When we say the marketing mix is everything and anything you can change about your offering, a heuristic is a simplification of some of the things that you might want to think about that you could change about your offering to help you to kind of brainstorm and consider some of the factors that might help you to improve the value offering that you have, or to improve the position that you have in the minds of the target market that you're going after. Then all the middle stuff that's in here is this design that I talked about. That's the STP and D, which is segmenting, targeting, differentiation, and positioning. So these components are going to be some of the components where a lot of analytics occur. A good deal of analytics are, and these analytics can be qualitative analytics or they can be quantitative analytics that are designed to kind of help you to kind of link your marketing strategy or develop your marketing strategy to the insights that you gain when you do your market opportunity analysis. So that's a really quick introduction to a slide that I spend a lot of time on when I'm teaching the course and that I'll refer back to in many cases. And I refer back to this slide because what this slide helps you to do is to get at the issue of how do you achieve these results that you're often kind of focused on trying to achieve. And the results that you're focused on trying to achieve in business, the results. This is the simplest part of business. Oftentimes is in the profit maximizing organizations, you're trying to achieve profits, right? So profits are kind of the focal point of a lot of businesses. So how do we kind of enhance profits? And then shareholder value would be another perspective. So sometimes there are other people who have stakeholders, or other stakeholders might be a broader way to think about that. Other stakeholders who you may be trying to influence and provide results to those different stakeholders. So marketing kind of has to think about, these are somewhat, increasing our returns to some of these different outcomes. These results are somewhat of a given. What marketing is trying to answer is the question, how can we achieve that? So two dominant ways that marketers achieve those is by using this marketing program, these marketing strategies. So a program is just a collection of all the different marketing strategies that the firm is trying to pursue. So that marketing program is really designed to try to deliver on two different things: customer equity and brand equity. So these are going to be the goals that we focus on in the center: brand and customer equity. So we do these marketing plans and marketing strategies to try to enhance our brand equity or enhance our customer equity. And by enhancing our brand equity or our customer equity, we can achieve the different results or the company goals that we're trying to achieve and sustain. So when we think about brand equity, I'm going to talk more about that as we get more depth into the slide. And I'm also going to talk more later about customer equity. But you can think about customer equities generally as customer acquisition, that's getting new customers. Customer expansion is basically kind of taking existing customers and expanding the amount of business that you do with those existing customers. And then customer retention is kind of taking the customers that you have and recognizing that if you can keep those customers and retain those customers so that they come back for repeat purchases of your products, the longer you keep them, as long as you're selling at a profitable margin on the products that they're purchasing, you'll continue to kind of grow the profits of the organization. Or if profits aren't your focus and you're focused on some other metric in terms of stakeholder value, you can continue to deliver against that stakeholder, deliver those stakeholder benefits. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the gist of marketing. Okay, so that's a quick introduction and overview of marketing strategy and why we're trying to get into marketing strategy and the goals and that objective that companies are trying to achieve with those marketing strategies.